Brew Strong is brought to you by morebeer.com, where a man can brew like a man.
Brewers, it's time for the beer radio you've been looking for. This is the show that dispels myths, tackles the toughest topics, and makes no apologies for geeking out on beer. Hosted by two guys that drink before they think, Jamil and John Palmer. This is Brew Strong.
Hey, howdy, hey, my brewing brothers and sisters.
Howdy, howdy.
Brew Strong. Howdy, howdy, howdy. Just set aside an entire day and come up with and write them down.
That's a good idea.
There you go. Well, you know what we should have done? We should have got some advice from like the guys at the Brewing Network anniversary party, the guys that helped me name the beers, the Geppetto's Crotch and the Rusty Trombone. All that. That's the marketing. That's those guys know what they're talking about right there. That was great.
Check out the forum.
Yeah, I should have all sorts of ideas for you. But you probably want to run them by me first, so I'll tell you which ones you shouldn't say. All right? Help maintain your pristine image.
That's right. I do need a good PR man.
Right. I mean, look what's happened to me. I mean, I'm... And one of the things I love, like, we
like sheep?
Sheep are pretty nice. If you haven't tried it, don't knock it. One of the things I really love, and I keep going on about, is the conference. And one of the great memory of the conference was the Hudacek brothers.
Yeah, those guys.
Those guys crack me up. And I keep telling people, it's like you get these two guys, these brothers, and they look a lot alike and they sound a lot alike. Uh-huh. And one will stand to your left, one will stand to your right, and they'll just go on, and it's like broken stereo. It's like the left channel's working at a high pace and a high volume, and
twins on caffeine,
and then the left channel fails and the right channel kicks in at high speed, high pace, high volume, and then it switches back and forth between left and right channels, and then all of a sudden both channels work when they're laughing. It's laughter in stereo. Oh, those guys just crack me up. We took them out to lunch, didn't we, at the conference?
Yeah, we did.
Went over to Pacific Coast, had a couple of pints, had some lunch with them. They're great. I really enjoyed hanging out with those guys. I like, one of the things I love about the conference is meeting new people and getting to say hi and don't ever hesitate to come up to either John or I and say whatever's on your mind, and whether you like
Randy
us or not, or
Ray or Charlie or anybody you've ever heard of.
No, those guys don't like
these
you.
Conferences.
Those guys don't like you. We love you. Those guys don't. But come up and say hi, and it tells if you want a picture, don't worry, not a problem. Pictures are fine, autographs are fine, any of that. Absolutely not a problem. we've done the same thing to other people, so don't even worry about it. But that said, the thing I miss most about the conferences nowadays is I'm so busy, and you're so busy, is you don't get a lot of time to just hang out with some of our friends that we've known over the years. I met the Hudacek brothers down in Orlando, where they gave me an hour's worth of crap about the competition in Orlando. And, even then I liked them. They're really nice guys. Yeah. And so, getting a chance to go out to lunch and hang with those guys and just talk and relax and have some fun, that was really special for me. I really enjoyed that. I'm glad we could do that. And I'm glad you could be there. You're one of my dear friends. And those guys are just a kick in the pants. And I tell you, conferences out in Minnesota in 2010, that's not far from where those guys live. I think I may have to rent a car and go out and hassle them at home or something.
As they describe their neighborhood in Brighton, with their dad living next door to them and so on. Right. I mean, it's like the Hudacek street.
Yeah, the Hudacek compound.
Yeah.
Right.
That's got to be unique.
Well, you and I will have to go, and we'll have to practice. So you'll stand on the left, I'll stand on the right,
There we go.
We'll blast them. Although I think we'll fail. I think we'll fail. No way we can go as long and fast and hard as those guys go.
We'll have to take Randy with us.
Yeah, there you go. They'd do it. We'll get a whole crowd of people. We'll give them quadraphonic. They give us stereo. We'll give them quadraphonic in return, huh?
Yeah, there's a plan.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And I don't know if I mentioned our great sponsor, More Beer, morebeer.com. Head out there, and they're great guys, too. And actually, they've done business with the Hudacek brothers for ages. I think Chris knows them really well. And he was the one who was telling me, he loves those guys, too. They're really a lot of fun. And so are the More Beer guys. If you go to morebeer.com, place your order, call up the store, ask them questions about stuff. They'll take good care of you. They'll make sure you're very happy. If you're not a happy customer from More Beer, then I don't know what because
you're not calling enough.
Yeah. Call them and tell them why you're not happy. They'll take care of you. They're good guys. That's 100% customer service at that place. I love those guys. And what do we got today? What's our Brew Strong topic for the day, Justin?
Well, let's leave it to Joe from Boston. He called into the number and has a question he wants you guys to cover. Here you go.
Hey, Jamil and John. This is Joe. I'm a member of the Boston Wort Processors in Boston. I understand the importance of fermentation temperature control, but I have some questions about the best way to go about controlling it. How can I keep the temp stable when the temperature outside the fermenter can swing up to 50 degrees over a short period of time?
Now see, that's a good question.
That is.
That is one of the most critical things as far as making great beer is temperature control. That's one of the things I've always ranted about. Don't be buying conicals, don't be buying, stainless steel sculptures and things like that until you have your temperature control. You should be getting yourself a fridge and a controller and all that. Of course, not everybody has that amount of money, and there are a lot of options and a lot of different ways to do it, right?
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Well, and, Joe is really cool. I love this guy. He's he and I have exchanged a few emails, and one of the things he has is a book from 1762 that belonged to President John Adams. He actually has the book that John Adams owned.
Really? Wow.
And it's this brewing book. And in it, it has this paragraph on temperature control. And I don't like to read things on the air because it really kind of sucks. But I just thought this was amazing. It's like in the book it says, I know very well good beers were sometimes, perhaps often, made before the thermometer was known. Okay, this is 1762. And still is by many who are entirely ignorant of it. But this, if not wholly the effect of chance, cannot be said to be very distant from it. They who carry on this process, unassisted by principles and the use of the thermometer, must admit they are frequently unsuccessful, whereas did they carefully and with knowledge apply this instrument, they certainly would not be disappointed. It is equally true, the brewing art, for a long space of time, has been governed by an ill-conveyed tradition alone. If lucky combinations have sometimes flattered the best practitioners, faulty drinks as often made them feel the want of certain and well-established rules. It is just as absurd for a brewer to refuse the use of the thermometer as it would be for an architect to reject the informations of his plummet and rule and to assert they were unserviceable because the first house, and probably many others, were built without their assistance. Back in 1762, this dude here was on the internet doing his shows on the Brewing Network and saying, look, you should be using a thermometer. You balloon heads out there, I know, and that's the thing. You get people go, well, I make great beer and I don't have any fermentation temperature control. It all turns out perfect. I just let it go. Yeah, it's 100 degrees out. Yeah, it's, but you get that variable results. You're getting beers that don't attenuate fully. You're getting beers that have a lot of diacetyl, acetaldehyde, a lot of these characters that you really don't want. Uncontrolled, fusel alcohols, esters, things like that. So
Belgians.
And now, Belgian, and that's also the thing. A lot of times people go, well, it's Belgian, doesn't matter, do whatever. It's like, no. Even Belgians, temperature control, or even more so, temperature control, very important. And you're going to make so much better beer with temperature control. That's why after full wort boil, so you get yourself a big enough pot, and you're still extract brewing, right? You don't go to all grain. What you do is you get yourself fermentation temperature control. And figure out how to control the temperatures of your ales and lagers to make the best beer possible, right? That's the big thing. So I think if you're not doing that, then you're really not serious about making good beer if you're not controlling your temperature. So what about Joe's question, John? He's saying, look, here in Boston, certain times of the year, ambient temperature can swing like 50 degrees. Over short periods of time. He's had he's hit 90 on one day and then frost a couple days later. So he's been brewing with the seasons, but it's still a little hit or miss. So where can we go? Where do we start? What's the I guess we need
what's the most base way to do it?
What's the baseline? Or let's start, because not everybody has the mansion on the hill like you have. Or the Pope Estate like I have, all funded by the Brewing Network.
Right.
How does somebody start out on a budget? Give me the basics, and we'll kind of go from there. What do you think? We'll go from there and we'll kind of build on it and say what your next step up would be.
Okay, I guess the most basic would be an enclosed space, such as a closet. If you put your fermenter in the closet, it'll probably be more stable in the closet than it would be in the room at large.
Away from the sunny side of the house. So if you've got a closet on the interior of your house, that one's going to be cooler. Or if you have a part of your house that's always shady. At my old house, I had a bathroom that was on a patio, and the patio was covered, and so it was always shaded. Even grew moss out there, so that bathroom was always nice and cool and steady. Something like that. If you get the sun shining on a wall, it really heats up the room. So, stay away from rooms like that.
Yeah, if even in an interior room, you still have too much temperature swing, setting your fermenter into a large bucket full of water is a way to increase the thermal mass of the system and reduce the amount of temperature swing.
So you could even put it in a bucket or a bathtub.
Right.
You could fill up a bathtub with water, and it doesn't even have to be cold water necessarily. You start out with cold water, but it'll, like John's saying, the entire tub needs to now change. So it'll buffer those swings in temperature. Now, if it's hot continuously, obviously the temperature is going to rise, but it'll take much longer. Right.
And you can always add ice bottles to that bath, to help keep that bath's temperature down. And you don't have to get it ice cold. You're looking for something in the 60s, so a couple ice bottles will work very well to help keep that water cool and to help reduce, help keep the maximum temperature that where it sees is fermenting, getting above say 75.
Well, and maybe we should talk about the critical aspect of fermentation temperature control is to prevent really wild swings. It would be better.
Right.
Okay, let's say you have a recipe that's saying ferment at 67 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, instead of starting at 65, letting it go up to 68, and then back down to 65, and then up to 68, or 70, 65 to 70, 65 to 70, that type of thing. Because what's going to happen is the yeast are going to start fermenting like crazy. They're going to start out slow. It's going to get up to 70. They're going to start fermenting like crazy. They may go for a couple of days, and then it's going to drop down to 65 again, and the yeast are going to be on the tail end, and they're just going to drop out of solution. They're going to they're going to go to sleep, and they're not going to clean up a lot of those remaining sugars, those things like acetaldehyde, acetal, and you're going to end up with a nasty beer. So it would be better than chasing 65 or chasing 67, to just let it ferment at 70 and just keep it steady at 70. So a steady fermentation temperature or a very slowly rising fermentation temperature to the end is much more ideal than one that goes up and down, up and down.
Yeah, we talked about that. We talked about that in our lagering shows where you know, if anything, you want to start cooler and let the beer rise gradually over the length of the fermentation. It's, you know, if you're going to have warm fermentation, then a steady state warm fermentation at, say, 70 degrees is better than, as you're saying, Jamil, than a fluctuating temperature from 65 to 70 and back down, because you're going to end up forming more precursors, more of the diacetyl, more of the acetaldehyde, and then the yeast, when it cools down, are going to stop conditioning those and refining those byproducts, and you're going to end up with a bad beer. If you can, and the other key point is, you know, don't let that beer start at 80 and then stick it in an ice bath and cool it down to 60, because they're going to produce tons of precursor at 80. And as that beer cools down in the bath to, say, 60 degrees over 3 days, when most of that fermentation is finished, you're going to have just tons of precursor left over, and all your yeast has gone to sleep.
Yeah, so you want those yeast to get real active at the end and suck up the dregs of what they're getting greedy, finding stuff to make energy out of before they go dormant, and you want them to be sucking up diacetyl and acetaldehyde and stuff like that. So that's why that rising temperature rather than a falling temperature is more important. So your first piece of advice is find a room that is interior and enclosed, and that'll be more stable. If they can add more mass, thermal mass, I suppose you could strap on large pieces of lead even to the fermenter, and that would add thermal mass. Anything that's in good contact with the fermenter, like water would be. And water has quite a ability to carry heat, so that's probably one of the ideal ones and cheapest. All right, so I've got an interior room and I've added a bucket of water, but it's getting hotter and hotter and hotter outside. I live in Sacramento or near Sacramento, and it's 110, and for some reason I haven't turned on the air conditioner, so it's 110 in my house. What do I do next? What's my next step?
Well, you go back to your closed space model, but now you're going to add some active cooling to it. Get a room air conditioner and just cool down that room. A room air conditioner, one of the small ones from Home Depot, it'll run you $100, $120. You can probably find them online for cheap too. I think I bought one a couple of years ago for $80. And a 5,000 BTU, 18-inch kind of cube air conditioner can chill down a room to maintain 65, no problem. Or you can go to a box, build yourself a box. It could be a cardboard box, and stick that room air conditioner on the cardboard box. It'll work. It'll cool down that local area and help me.
Well, and I see how that would work. We forgot one key element. That sounds kind of pricey to me. I mean, let's say I'm like Justin, where I'm begging for ramen and condoms. So, what's the there's got to be a cheaper stage than that, right? How about the wet T-shirt and fan thing? I see that on the internet all the time. I've never done it. That works good in dry areas, yeah.
Okay,
so if it's dry enough where the water will evaporate off the T-shirt, you drape a T-shirt over your carboy or a towel. Terry cloth towel really works well, better than a T-shirt.
Yeah, that's true.
Wrap a terry cloth towel on there, put a clothespin on it, or a safety pin to hold it around the carboy. Let the ends of the towel sit in that bath of water, and then blow a fan across it. And that fan, so almost everybody has a fan and a towel at their house, right? And that wind blows across the towel. It increases the evaporation rate of the water that's soaking up through the terry cloth towel, and it'll cool it down, what do they say, like 5-10 degrees?
Yeah, but that works best in dry areas. If you're in a humid area, such as Virginia, it's not going to work very well.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But that is a good cheap way to get some extra cooling out.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then the step above that would be, the little window AC unit. Now,
yeah,
I've been able to pick up fridges for $25, and you can get yourself the controller and hook that up, and that's been pretty good. Now, why not go that route?
That is a really good route to go. Get a spare fridge, and you can pick them up off Craigslist, like you say, or eBay, or various used fridges or whatever. You can get those, for cheap, and get yourself a temperature controller, like a Johnson or a Ronco, and put the probe inside the fridge, tape it to your carboy, and that will help you maintain a very consistent temperature.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, and that's what I use. I'll use fridge, and then I love my Johnson, and
you tape it to your carboy all the time, don't you?
I put my probe on my carboy, and I guess the drawback to this is it takes up a lot of room. So if you don't have, you're not going to wheel the fridge into the into the house and put it in the bedroom, and
stick it in the garage.
Well, if you're married, you're certainly not doing this. But if you're living with a frat house, then I'm sure this is fine. But yeah, you need to put it in the garage or somewhere, and then almost any fridge will work. The question often is that I see is, should I use a fridge or should I use a freezer? And I've always leaned towards the fridge because the temperatures that you want to do your fermentation at are more fridge temperature like. Even when you're lagering, it's fridge temperature. Fridge temperature is just below 40. It's like 36 degrees, and they'll go down to 32, and they'll go up to 40 or 45, or 50. Now, and so with lagers, you can almost even dial it in with the fridge controller. So a cheap way to do lagers. If you're trying to do ales, you want a warmer, right? Now, a freezer isn't meant to carry away the condensation like a fridge is. A fridge is designed to pull all that condensation out, and, there's frost-free and all that stuff. With a freezer, you tend to catch a lot of moisture in those things, and people have a lot of moisture problems.
Mold.
Mm-hmm.
Easy to get mold in a freezer.
So people end up using those buckets of damp rid or whatever to soak up the moisture in there. I prefer just going with a fridge. Fridge is cheaper to start with usually, and then you can put your stuff in there.
Yeah.
I hook up.
And lifting 6 gallons of wort over the edge of a chest freezer and down in is not easy for us middle-aged guys
or old guys like me.
Yeah. It's hard on your back. So a fridge, it's a lot easier to squat down and lift the carboy, the one vertical foot to slide it in on the bottom shelf there in the fridge.
Right. And, as far as controllers go, they got the Johnson, they got the Ranco, they got the old Johnsons with the metal probe. And those are okay. You got to be real careful you don't kink that little line that it's an open tube that air pressure and works off of air pressure, so you don't want to kink that tube. The later ones, they're electronic and they're a lot more durable. But I like some of the Johnsons. The ones that I have right now, I haven't been in the market for a controller for quite a while. But the Johnsons will have a anti-short cycle setting. So, you have this fridge, and it's got a compressor. If you run the compressor for a while and then stop it and restart it and stop it and restart it, you can end up with some issues on the compressor, shortening the life of the compressor. So what you want is this anti-short cycle. It gives a 20-minute delay. So if the thing's just been running, it won't run again for 20 minutes, and that actually extends the life of your compressor. That's a nice thing. Now, on the Rancos, they'll have ones that are two-stage. And what I want to do is, you hook up those two-stage, you can do, heating and cooling all at the same time. So that's very, very cool. What I want to do, we'll take a short break, and when I come back, I want to kind of get into heating and cooling at the same time off of one controller and one fridge. Back after this.
Keep your carboy cap on. This is Brew Strong. We'll be right back.
Nico, listen, our lawyers said that we had to do this for 1 hour, and after this, we don't have to talk to each other for 3 more months to the next meeting.
Kids, come on, let's get out of here.
I'm supposed to have more lines. I'm the professional. Hey, it's Sully.
And I'm Nico.
And we opened the 21st Amendment 9 years ago at 563 2nd Street in San Francisco, just 2 blocks from Giants Park, to make great beer and have a great time doing it.
That's right, because to us, the 21st Amendment is more than just the right to make beer. It's the right to experiment, to be innovative, and just do things differently. And so now, we're putting our craft beer in cans.
That's right, cans. You can find our world-famous Hell or High Watermelon Wheat Beer and Brew Free or Die IPA throughout California and Alaska.
And now it's also available on draft at select accounts in the Bay Area.
So next time you're at your local neighborhood pub or good beer store, be sure to ask for 21st Amendment in cans.
Because everyone likes it in a can.
Tasty crack cans.
Tasty crack can.
White Labs, your source for maltose mowing monsters, announces the White Labs Platinum lineup for 2009. Looking for out-of-the-ordinary yeast to make the best beer possible? The Platinum strains from White Labs are only available for a limited time and make your homebrews stand out. Through February, find Australian Ale, Essex Ale, and Dusseldorf Alt yeast. March and April, it's Nottingham Ale, Abbey 4, and Mexican Lager yeast. And May through June, don't miss Premium Bitter Ale, Belgian Wit 2, and Belgian Bastogne Ale yeast. Keep up with all the great yeasts in the White Labs Platinum program at whitelabs.com, where you can also join the White Labs Customer Club. Brew with the freshest and most unique yeast with the White Labs 2009 Platinum strains. White Labs. It's all in the vial.
In the past year, the Brewing Network has been able to add 2 new shows, expand our studio capabilities and quality, and bring more beer information home to you than ever before. In no small part, this is due to subscribers like you. Thank you from all of us at the Brewing Network. Without your monthly support of any denomination, we could not bring you the very best in live beer radio like Can You Brew It, Brew Strong, and the Sunday Session. Haven't signed up yet? Join your fellow brewers in the BN Army. Sign up today at thebrewingnetwork.com for a recurring donation as little as $2 a month. Besides all the great live radio you'll support, every subscriber is automatically entered in monthly raffles for amazing brew gear like a conical fermenter, a temperature control system, or your own draft setup. Become a part of the BN Army today.
You're listening to the Brewing Network.
Back to the beer guys that make other beer guys look like wine guys. Brew Strong.
All right. Before the break, I was talking about heating and cooling, and I've gotten a lot of questions on that. John, have you ever done any heating and cooling simultaneously in a controlled environment type of thing?
Yeah, I have. When I brew during the winter around here, normally, I'm in luxurious Southern California. Usually doesn't get much below 60 during the day. During the winter, but
is that when you put on the parka and you start shivering and? Oh
yeah, heavy sweatshirts, definitely.
You Southern California people.
Yeah, we're all wimps. But I there are nights when it'll drop down to
50.
40.
Oh my God! How do you survive? Do you need a snowblower?
I put a little space heater in the shed. And that took care of the fermentations.
Ah, okay. Now, do you put a controller on that, or you just let that kind of go?
The space heater I bought had a built-in controller on it,
okay.
so you could set the temperature, and it would it would turn it on and off. And that was, maybe I'm thinking like $25, maybe $30 for this little space heater. Pretty cheap.
Well, I'd say, those things are, you can find all sorts of good bargains and things like that. Even a heating pad. You can go down to Walmart for less than $10. You can pick up a heating pad as well, that can help you control fermentation temperatures. Now, if it's got a thermostatic controller, thermostatic meaning, it responds to the environment, the temperature in the environment, then and it's in the range you need, then great. That'll actually work fairly well. If you don't, something like a heating pad is kind of just like an all-on, at whatever wattage. You have the low, the medium, the high setting, and it's just wattage going through coils and resistive heat that it generates. Well, one of the cool things is Ranco and our sponsor Morebeer, morebeer.com, they sell these things, these Ranco controllers, and they've got 2 stages to them. One, and you can dial them both in for cooling if you want, or both in for heating, but the logical way is one for cooling, one for heating. And what I will do, let's say I've got wild swinging temperatures like Joe has experienced of 50 degrees. I get that where I live. At the Pope Estates in Elk Grove, the
wild swinging, yeah,
right. There's wild swinging going on at the Pope Estates. Good one, John.
Thank you.
Very good. So you've been there, and in the day it's 90 degrees. At night it drops to 50. A 40-degree swing. Well. What I'll do is I'll put a heat wrap, which you also can buy from Morebeer, on the heating side of the controller, and then the fridge is hooked up to the cooling side of the controller. And I'll put a degree tolerance between them, and it'll hold that beer right in that temperature range, and no problems at all. When it starts getting too warm, the fridge comes on. When it gets too cold, the firm wrap comes on and maintains that temperature in a nice tight tolerance. Now, you can kind of use that to advantage. One of the questions Joe had for me in our emails was, how do you do, a lot of batches? How do you control those without having 4 refrigerators going with 4 controllers? Well, one of the things you can do is in one of these fridges, if it's big enough and holds a couple carboys, you can put the probe on the heat, and you put you can have your heat controller on one of the carboys and use that for an ale and keep that temperature up, and then you can put a controller on the cooling on the lager, and between the two. The fridge is going to try and keep the lager cool enough. Just leave some space between them. Don't touch them together, right? Because then you get that conductive heat transfer. So keep the 2 carboys apart, and one of them is running the fridge, and that's your lager. And that you're going to have about 50 degrees Fahrenheit. And then if you have an ale that's running around 65, the firm wrap on that, or your heating pad, will keep that temperature up. And you can actually do the 2 in the same environment, and it actually works quite well. I've done it a number of times. And I think that's a good way to go. What else would you use controllers for, John? How else could you do this? Could you do the fridge without a controller?
You can. You need to have a thermometer in the fridge, a freestanding thermometer inside there that you can, monitor and watch to make sure you're not getting down below 32. Because beer will freeze. If it gets down, say 30 or so, or 28, it will freeze, which is annoying, not fatal, but annoying.
Mm-hmm. You don't want to freeze those yeast cells because that's where your fermentation's at.
Yeah, but I've often just run it without a controller. I can watch the thermometer and tweak it down a little bit and tweak it down a little bit. Like when I'm lagering or something, I'll just I won't bother setting the controller for 35. I'll just start moving it down over a couple days and watch it stabilize, down there 32 to 34, and I'm lagering her. It's likewise with the warm setting. It's a temperature controller is not crucial, but it really does help. It simplifies, it takes the worry out of the process.
Well, one of the problems you're going to have with a refrigerator or like an AC window unit, I on my site I've got the walk-in cooler that I built with a AC window unit and a bunch of styrofoam panels in my shed. Now, I've since torn that down because of termite problems and moving to the Pope Estate. But the problem you have is window AC unit is designed to go down to 50 degrees at the coolest. It's not if you want to do lagers or you want to do even some ales, if they're actively fermenting, they're not going to 50 degrees isn't going to do it. Same thing with refrigerators. Refrigerators are designed to run between 32 and 45 in the box, And if you need warmer than that, you're going to have a problem. The great thing is, if you don't have one, if you go out to buy yourself a window AC unit or a refrigerator, go with the cheapest one possible, the one with the manual controls, the one with the dial knob that's, it's actually turning a resistor on, a pot on the other end.
Yep.
Rather than digital controls. If you're going through solid state circuitry, then you're kind of stuck. It's much more difficult to tweak these things. But if you're talking manual controls, you disassemble that panel, and of course, do this at your own risk. If you don't know what you're doing, don't do this because you can kill yourself. But you can pull that out, and usually what you'll find on the other side of that knob, on the other side of that control, is a screw. And that screw is actually determining the set point of that range of that control. The on-off point where it's set. And you take somewhere there's a probe, there's a temperature probe. Now you can just do this, experimentation-wise. But like a window AC unit, at the very front, you pull off the grill, there's a probe across the front of the cooling grid there. The fins of the aluminum fins there, and there'll be a shiny tube like one of the old Johnson controllers. You take that, put it in ice water. That's 32 degrees, right? You shake it around in some crushed ice and water, 32 degrees, and you can adjust that little screw, and you'll hear it go tink, tink, as it goes in and out of that set point. And there that's 32 degrees. So you can actually dial in a window AC unit to run at any temperature you darn well please. You can dial it down, and those things will put out, minus 10-degree air. They'll put out 100-degree air. You just tell it what kind of range you want, and it usually has about a 20 to 30-degree Fahrenheit range, and you can use that to adjust it for properly holding ales in a small room or lagers in a room as well, or like in a cold box. And you can do the same thing on a fridge. So if you don't have your own controller, you can do that. I've also seen people with, plans on the internet for taking a home thermostat and wiring that up to a fridge. That seems a lot more dangerous to me.
Yeah.
But that's a possibility as well. Things like that can be done as well. So it is possible to make those things controlled without buying the controllers, because the controllers can be, $70, $75.
Yeah, or even up, even more, some of them. But steal money from your kids if you have to, but get a controller.
Right. Yeah. Turn the wife out to run a few tricks.
Yeah, that's
I like both of your perspectives on this. It's that important. Steal from the kids, put out the wife. It's that important.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like it.
Out the dog.
I like it.
Whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes.
Good.
I think. Yeah, absolutely. You shouldn't be buying fancy counter-pressure bottle fillers. If you're entering competition, you should be filling off a freaking tube going in a bottle like Tasty does. You should, you shouldn't be buying stainless anything. You should be buying temperature control. That's what you should be buying. If you're doing anything else, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah,
so
do it yourself is all well and good, but a $75 temperature controller is one of the best investments you can make.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. It's going to make a world of difference in your brewing. Trust us on this. Just like, pitching rates are important, but even over pitching rates, I would go with fermentation temperature control. It's really that critical.
And can I just mention the lazy factor you haven't even mentioned? That getting that $75 temp controller,
right.
Not only did it make it possible for me, but I did the whole frozen water bottle thing for a while.
Yeah, you do it for once or twice, and then you're like, what the hell?
Forget it.
Right.
And it's more frustration, too, because it fluctuates a little bit. Now it's too cold. Now it's
too cold, too hot. And, yeah.
So even the hands-off factor was, not just the quality of the beer, but just that you can walk away.
Right.
So great.
You set it and forget it. Absolutely. It's like a Ronco, whatever they are. The Showtime Grill, that's it. Well, we got an interesting email from Luke, and he says, Jamil, everyone's trying to be a bit more environmentally friendly these days. Let's face it, homebrewing is not the greenest hobby in the world, but I'm looking at ways I could cut down on energy and water usage. I'm wondering if I could just control the fermentation temp in the ales for just the bulk of fermentation, like the first several days of vigorous fermentation. My basement stays pretty cool in summer long, about 68 to 74 Fahrenheit. Will these swings in temperature affect my beer or shock the yeast? And he says, I made a post on the forum, but no one gives me a good reason why not to do this. And I thought that was actually a very good question. I thought, okay. Mm-hmm. Why wouldn't you? And actually, Luke's paying attention because on a lot of the Jamil shows, we've been talking about how it's really critical. The first phase of fermentation is really where all your precursors are made, where growth happens, and cell wall permeability, things like that are all kind of determined. From nutrient levels, oxygen levels, temperature, pitching rate, all that is really determined up front. And what you do up front determines what happens at the end, and how leaky the cell gets, and all the crud that oozes out of it, and gives you a lot of other things, and all the precursors that you made at the beginning, whether they're cleaned up at the end, things like that. So, very critical temperature control at the beginning. That doesn't necessarily mean you can just let it go at the end. So when you start out, let's say you're starting out at 65 degrees Fahrenheit, and you're fermenting for it's going to take about a week for the thing to completely go. After the first couple of days, you really don't need to hold it at 65 anymore. Once you're 2-3 days into it, doesn't matter. But you can't let it start swinging, going high and going low, AC and DC, as John knows, coming by the Pope Estate. You really, what you want is either a rising temperature or a steady temperature. Going warmer is okay, and it can steadily get warmer. But if it starts going from 65, 66, 67, 68, 69,
80,
70, even 80, if, there's certain strains, and if it's towards the very tag end, you're going to be okay. But if it climbs up to 70 degrees, and then all of a sudden it goes 65 again, your yeast is just going to start to flocculate.
Yeah.
And they're not going to finish up. You're going to end up with, you may end up with under attenuation. You most likely will have acetaldehyde, a kind of a green apple character in the beer, and most likely you'll have a diacetyl, kind of a buttery character in your beer. Yeah. So you just can't let it drop off a cliff like that. You can't let it swing. If you're an area, like John was saying earlier on, if you have an interior closet space, and you put the fermenter in there, and it's getting warmer and it's staying steady, or in a water bath of some kind, great, no problem. I think it's going to be steady enough; it'll be fine. But if you're putting it outside where it gets sunny in the day and cold at night, it's really just going to kind of mess up your beer. So you really don't want to do that. But I thought Luke had a great question there with how long do you need to temperature control this thing?
Yeah, and I guess the time we'd throw out there is for an ale, at least 36 hours, if not 48.
Right. within 48 or so. Most of that stuff has happened. All the growth happens within the first 36 hours maximum. And then it's, and precursors and stuff, it's all happening earlier on.
Yeah, lagers maybe the first 3 days are probably more critical, and then it could start warming up.
Right. And what I like to do is start cold with lagers.
Yep.
Start, 44 or so, and then let it rise up to 50 over the first couple of days, and then hold it at 50. And then towards the end, I don't care. As long as it's going up, as long as it's not going down, I don't care what it ends up at. And what I'll often do is with lagers, it looks like it's slowing down. Looks as it's pretty close to the end. I'll take it out and put it on the counter where I rack to a keg, and I'll let it sit there for a day or two, and the temperature's just rising the whole time, and it gets up to 60-ish or so, and it's perfect because the yeast become a little more active. They reabsorb that diacetyl. They clean up the acetaldehyde. Acetaldehyde happens. Every sugar and all that, it's all being turned into acetaldehyde. So you have acetaldehyde in there. It's an intermediate step on the way to ethanol. So, you just want to make sure that thing gets complete and all that gets reabsorbed.
That's right. Very good.
Very good. All right, well, let's take a break. And when we come back, we'll wrap up with some of our questions from the chat room. Back after this.
Brew right. Brew smart.
Brew Strong. This is Brew Strong.
Hey, Push, the new brewery's looking good.
Thanks, Finn. Piece by piece.
Well, let's fire her up. Whoa! Is that a new kettle?
Yeah, just got it brand new, but paid half price.
What? And that blade scale?
40% off.
The new tap handle?
$5 instead of $13. Got a new regulator for the brew stand, too, but $5 instead of $25.
Dude, where are you stealing all this stuff from?
Where else? The more beer deal of the day.
Announcing the Beer, and More Beer Deal of the Day. Every day, a new fantastic deal from big items to small that will blow you away. Boil kettles, carboy carriers, sterile siphon starters, digital timers. Watch morebeer.com every day for a new deal, and you just might find the item you've been waiting for at a price you cannot believe. Hurry, because stock is limited on most items.
And that sweet Guinness cap, let me guess.
The More Beer Deal of the Day.
Yeah, I knew it. Come on, let's brew something. Find the More Beer Deal of the Day at morebeer.com. Celebrity voices impersonated.
Downtown Joe's, located in the historic Oberon building in beautiful downtown Napa, California, offers an award-winning brew pub experience from 8:30 a.m. to 1 a.m. every day. For 15 years at the corner of 2nd and Main, Downtown Joe's has been voted Best Night Spot 7 times and Best Brew Pub for the last 4 years in a row. Brewmaster Colin Kaminsky's handcrafted ales, like his Tailwagon Amber Ale and Catherine the Great Imperial Stout, are the perfect accent to riverside dining, live music, and a relaxing outdoor patio. Don't miss the Beer of the Month, special rotating taps, and happy hour all day Mondays. Visit downtownjoes.com to make reservations, peruse their extensive calendar of events, or just read more about their fantastic beers. Come enjoy the fine beer, food, and music. Downtown Joe's, the award-winning brew pub where you'll feel at home. Williams Brewing is your online resource for prompt delivery of quality home brewing supplies. Since 1979, Williams Brewing has offered the finest equipment and freshest ingredients and the best customer service in the business. Cut hours off your brewing sessions by using one of their 11 varieties of famous Williams malt extract. Their Williams German Pils is mashed with pure German Moravian two-row barley malt for a light blonde color and malty crispness you just can't get from other extracts. Or check out their unique fermenters, draft beer equipment, bottling aids, and more. They even have their own line of precision hydrometers. Go to williamsbrewing.com to browse their vast selection and enter promo code BREW at the order checkout for $5 off your next order over $50. Orders placed by 3 p.m. ship the same day. Again, go to williamsbrewing.com and enter promo code BREW at checkout for $5 off your next order. Brewing is easy, the Williams way.
This is www.thebrewingnetwork.com.
Sit down next to it, grab yourself a paper towel, and watch those yeast have sex.
You're listening to the Brewing Network.
Like the Lance Armstrong of the beer world. Except for that nut thing. This is Brew Strong.
Go Lance. Teach some Frenchies a thing or two.
I have a house full of Frenchies, and I agree with you. F the French.
And actually, we went to France and hung around Paris for a while. And I was all prepared as the rude American to not enjoy it. And I'll tell you, it's one of the greatest cities in the world. Paris is one of the great, and the French are one of the greatest people in the world.
Not rude, like they say.
Yeah, they're just not, smiling and thank you like, the people are in the U.S. all the time, which is a lot of times very fake. They're very real, very straightforward people. I actually really like the French. I really like France. I like everything about it. I like the city. I like the people. I like the food. I like everything about it.
I agree with you.
Really, just wonderful. Of course, I love pretty much everywhere I go, as long as I get to meet the people.
Because you're not working.
Exactly. I'm with the family. I'm not working.
Yeah.
There's beer to drink, so it's really good. But yeah, so I don't know. But go Lance Armstrong. Of course, he's not riding for the U.S., is he? He's riding for
Prostates?
Astra. I mean, what is he?
Yeah, Astra or something like that. Yeah.
Some country, probably. Right?
Aftra.
Right. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. What is that about?
Well, it's all these guys, they're not from these countries, but it's like soccer players. They just go to whatever country is pony up.
He's going to pay up the dough.
Yeah.
Good for him.
Yeah. No. He's represented his country for a long time, and if he can do it this time, great. I love somebody that defies the odds, and really just proves his detractors wrong. So,
like me, if there was a ramen eating competition, you mean? I would go for one any country, and you would like it because I'd be defying the odds. You'd think I'd fail, but no. Boy, could I eat that ramen. And it would also go, I could also then succeed in the how fast does ramen go through you competition. I'd win gold in both. You're welcome.
All right, now that he's derailed the entire program. The program brought to you by morebeer.com. Great guys, great products. Thank them for having Justin on the air. And that's quality programming right there.
Woot.
Well, John, did you have anything else to add about temperature control? There's the problem with this is we can say, hey, yeah, control your temperature, this way, that way, but everybody's got their own little clever ways of doing this, and they get a lot of questions. Yeah.
One topic that has come up between you and I in the past is,
mine is longer. It's an optical illusion.
Do you leave your probe just hanging in the air, or you strap it to the carboy?
I go commando all the time. No, strap it to the carboy. Absolutely. You don't want to measure the ambient temperature. Ambient temperature doesn't tell you anything. Okay, the air around the carboy. Even the vial of water or something that you're measuring in the ambient is not the right thing to measure. You want to measure the temperature of that fermentation. That's what you're trying to control. It's like in Brewing Classic Styles, which you pick up in the Brewing Network store, signed by John Palmer and Jamil and John Palmer. the temperatures listed in there are the temperature of the fermentation, okay? Unless you're measuring the fermenting beer, you're not measuring the temperature of fermentation, right? The air around it is not fermentation, and here's the reason why. As the yeast become more active, they generate more heat. As they slow down towards the end, they generate less heat. If you're still cooling to the same BTU rate at the end of fermentation as you were at the beginning of fermentation, you're overcooling your fermentation. You're going to end up with a lot of leftover byproducts that, when you enter any competition, they're going to say, it's not clean. It's got, diacetyl. It's got acetaldehyde. It's got, yada, yada, yada. It's not attenuated. So you need to measure the temperature of fermentation. So your probe should not be swinging freely. It should be attached firmly.
There you go.
And that's definitely one of the things that's been a discussion of the chat room.
Oh, yeah? What questions do we have from the chat?
To throw that in, there was a lot of discussion about where to put the probe, to tape it to the side of the carboy, to use one of the, More Beer's Firmwell, to get down in there. And this actually came up between me and Chad the other day. We do 10-gallon batches, so we've always got 2 carboys going when we're not using your conical. And he didn't have a Firmwell, and I said, don't worry about it, just place it between the 2 carboys.
Between the 2. It's like 2 pillows. Put it in between the 2 pillows.
Think of it as cleavage and put it in the best possible spot. Right there in the center, where there's liquid. This is something that you had told me. I had called you one day, I think it was, and I said, hey, I finally got temperature control, but I forgot to buy a Firmwell. Mm-hmm. And you said, just put it between the 2, and you were telling me how accurate it's going to be. Yep. Well, Chad was arguing with me a little bit. I don't know.
Chad didn't know shit.
And I said, well, okay, I know I don't know what I'm talking about in general, but test it. Mm-hmm. Put it in between, put the other one in your Firmo, go clean it out, whatever you do.
Yeah.
So,
and the funny thing was that Jamil didn't realize you were talking about brewing.
Right. The whole time he's thinking...
John's on a roll tonight, I tell you.
Yeah.
We have corrupted that boy.
So with all the talk in the chat room about it and this conversation I had with Chad, why don't you tell us what best way to place the probe? Yes, thank you.
All right. So there's
the probe wet.
There's there's convection, there's conduction, and there's radiation.
Right.
Right. Those are the ways that heat gets transferred between one body and another, one object and another. And conduction is really the thing that you're looking for.
Yeah, you want intimate contact and
with your probe.
With your probe, and better yet if you can get it wet.
Right. But the conductivity of glass. Now, glass is a decent insulator, but not that good an insulator. Now, it's a decent insulator when you're talking about rapid changes between outside and inside, right?
Right.
And you think, glass carboy, it's not measuring the temperature of the wort. But that glass, it will, transmit the temperature of the liquid through the glass much faster than the liquid can change temperature. That's why it's okay to tape your probe to your outside of your carboy, kind of midway between top and bottom of the liquid. Tape it on there so it's got nice contact with the glass. If you're really anal about it, you can put some thermal compound on there so it's, totally intimately in contact with the glass, but that's overkill. You don't even need that. Mm-hmm. And what I like to use is either, you take a towel and fold it up a couple of times, or bubble wrap is really good, or any of that thin foam insulation. And a lot of times they'll pack things with. You fold that up a few times, put that over so you've taped your probe to the glass with like painter's tape. So you don't get that gooey mess with duct tape. I used to use duct tape, and I realized painter's tape was better. Then you tape over your insulation over that thing. And I'll tell you, you are reading the temperature of the liquid inside that vessel very accurately. If you're a half degree off, I'd be shocked. There was a good article in Zymergy, I believe it was, back when Ray Daniels first took over. One of the Tech Geek articles or something, and a guy did an experiment. He measured the temperature in the center of the carboy in the liquid, and he measured the temperature near the glass wall of the carboy on the inside, and he measured the temperature on the outside of the glass, and it was within a half degree all the time. So as long as you're getting fermentation in there where the wort's moving or the beer's moving during fermentation, that temperature on the outside is the same. Now, the thing Justin was talking about, if you have two carboys sitting side by side, you got one probe to put between them. Just put it right in the middle. Touch the two things together over the probe, insulate it, you're done. And it's going to really give you the average of both those carboys, and both will be just fine. Not a problem with that.
All right, got more questions from the chat, too. Did you talk about putting it in a jar of water inside the fridge? You did.
Yes. So the problem with that is, all right, this container of water, and this was one thing I heard all the time, was like, you can drill out the top of like a White Labs vial and put it in there, and you can, it's going to buffer the changes in the air. You don't want to measure the temperature of the air, and that liquid, whatever it might be, it's not the fermenting beer. You don't have living creatures in there generating, kcals of energy and warming up the liquid. And you really want to control the temperature of the ferment, not to control the temperature of the environment, the ferment.
Okay. All right, another good question is about secondary fermentation temp control. This listener says, I'm able to temp control the primary fermentation, but secondary or conditioning, I'm not able to do that. So he says, if the beer's a bit higher once I go to secondary, say 5 to 10 degrees, than primary, is that a problem? Is it going to affect my beer? That's a good question, I think. What do you guys think?
Depends on what he's calling secondary. If he's racking it to a secondary fermenter and adding fruit or something, he really should be monitoring the fermentation temperature, just like in primary. If you don't monitor it and you let that warm up to 75, fermenting on fruit, you're going to get the fusel alcohols. So that's one caveat there. If on the other hand if he's talking about the secondary phase of fermentation, where he's keeping it in the same carboy and he's just giving the beer an extra week on the yeast to condition, then you can let it go up to 70, 75 without really harming it, and so you really don't need the control at that point.
Right.
Jamil,
no, I agree with what you said. I think the only other thing I'm thinking he might mean is conditioning in bottles and carbonation and all that.
Oh, okay.
So let's say he's gone, because I don't advocate the secondary fermenter and all that stuff. That's old school. Right. You don't need to do that sort of thing. You go ahead and let your yeast ferment out completely and fully, and then you transfer to whatever bottle or keg you're going to use. Unless you're doing, like John said, fruit. You're fermenting some fruit. You're at to do a fruit addition or dry hopping or souring or something like that. Then you need a secondary vessel, but otherwise you don't. And maybe he's talking about, I've bottled it, and I've got my beer in my bottles, and I want it to carbonate now. At that point, what is it okay for me to let it sit warm and fluctuate? And at carbonation time, absolutely no problem. You can actually let it go up and down and all that stuff. That's fine. You just want to keep it warm enough so that yeast are active enough to carbonate fully. And I think that's not a problem at all. You won't generate any, the minimal amount of sugars they're going to ferment. They're not doing any growth. It's going to be just fine.
Okay. And last question. Go ahead. Sorry, Palmer.
Just going back to the hot side aeration show and Charlie Bamforth's talk at NHC this year, one key to preserving beer flavor stability is once you've got that beer packaged, to reduce it, to keep it cool.
Yep.
So if you've gotten past the couple weeks it takes for carbonation, then now and if you want to preserve the flavor of the beer, now is time to keep it cool and steady. Cellaring temperatures or in the fridge. Mm-hmm. If you really want flavor stability, that's the other thing to be aware of in this discussion. That's
an excellent point, John. And I think one that's not emphasized enough is, you can carbonate a beer at 50, 60 degrees. They'll go ahead and carbonate. Mm-hmm. It'll take a long time, but your beer will last a lot longer if you do. so that cooler, carbonation. Or, if you're going to carbonate a warmer, get those, once they've reached their carbonation level, chill those things down. The closer you can hold those to freezing, and the steadier that temperature is, the longer that beer will last. I mean, this year in the NHC, I entered beers that I brewed 6 years ago, and they did just fine. And
you've been keeping them at what? You've been keeping them at 34?
Yeah, 37.
For years.
Yeah, I had that walk-in cooler, and I just stuck everything in there. And this year I was tearing it down. I'm like, I'll just enter this and enter that. Cooler going away. And, did just fine. And, that cool, steady temperature without, shaking them around or, getting them hot. I think the point John was making was Bamforth was saying, like every 10 degrees, you end up with, like half the life. So the cooler you can have it, the longer it's going to last. If you get it nice and cool, it'll stay steady and stable for a long, long time.
Okay.
That's right.
And a little temp control question about wort. Kim's in the chat room tonight, and she wants to know, hey, we only have a regular wort chiller. We don't have that fancy Jamil-style Whirlpool chiller.
Oh, well, cut them off.
That's it.
Eject them from the chat.
Yeah. So they say it's hard to get the wort to a pitchable temp shortly after the boil. And by the way, it's hard for everybody, isn't it? So what they've been doing is putting it in their chest freezer, which does have temp control, and waiting until it gets to pitching temp, which is usually overnight. And then of course pitching yeast. Any problems with doing that? They're waiting, I guess, 12 hours, 6 hours.
That's what I used to do, and so I actually used to have stainless steel conicals, and I've given them all away. And what I would do is, I would chill my wort down to like ale temperatures. And this would be for lagers. I could get down to ale temperatures with a counterflow or with an immersion chiller. And I had all these fancy counterflow chillers. And then I would run it into one of these conicals, and then I'd put it in the fridge. And overnight, I'd wait for it to get down into the mid-40s Fahrenheit. And then I would drop the brake material, because on lagers I believe it's important to get rid of the bulk of brake material. And then I would pitch my yeast. And so, this was great. It worked quite well. The danger is if your sanitization is not, tip-top, if you're not very careful about that sort of thing, bacteria will grow. Anything over 40 degrees Fahrenheit, you're going to get some bacterial action. That's why, fridges, they go around 40. Even then, you're going to get some action. So you need to be very careful of that. The immersion chiller with the Whirlpool, buy yourself a pump. You can knock down your wort to pitching temperature at that time, and you don't have to go through that step. And once I did that, I switched over to carboys because I no longer needed the conicals. All my brake material, and I get down to the temp and all that right in the kettle, and then I run clear wort into the carboy, and then I pitch, and I'm all good to go. So for me, that was a huge thing. It allowed me to switch back to carboys.
All right, so be clean, and it's all right.
Yeah, I think you're fine. 12 hours. If you're as freaking anal about it as I am, no problem. You probably go 24 or 48.
And by the way, Chad does basically the same thing, and I did the last beer I did. We have your temp control conical, and it takes it overnight to cool down the wort. But same thing, if we transfer just a little below 80 with your Whirlpool chiller, but our waters, our hose water's real warm here in the summer.
You can run ice water through that.
Yeah, we should build like a bucket to kind of run it through the bucket first. Yeah. We ought to do that to get it colder. That's a great idea, actually.
You recirculate through ice, and it gets
so that water is actually ice cold when it hits that wort.
Right, and you can add salt to that. You can get down so fast.
Okay.
And to so cold.
Okay.
You'll have like frost forming on your
the out. Well, the in anyway.
On your unit.
On your unit. Yes.
On my unit. Okay, well, we'll try that.
John's on a roll
But I wanted to reinforce that's what we'll generally put it in, and it takes about overnight for that more beer conical to get it down to pitching temp too. And obviously, Shat's been doing great with his beer with that method.
I'm drinking a IPA here, and Shat's made a number of beers that I would rate in the high 40s, if not a 50.
I guarantee when he listens to this show, though, we're going to have an ice bath going by his next brew. He'll be into it. Yeah, it's a good idea.
I think it'll help.
Yeah. Okay, that's it from the chat room, guys.
All right.
Cool.
Cool. No, cooling.
Well, yeah, cooling. Yeah, and I think tonight's show went real well. I think we got a lot of information conveyed.
Okay. If you say so, then I'm happy.
I feel so.
I'm with Palmer. Good shows, boys. And, by the way, Jamil and Palmer, be proud of yourselves. I do think, if all goes well, tomorrow, you two have just completed the final shows for Studio A here at the Brewing Network.
All right. We're getting to move to the new studio?
Yeah. So you
with
guys,
air conditioning?
You get to close it out. You get to kiss it goodbye, Jay-Z.
I'll pull my nuts off this fake leather seat one last time.
It's faux leather, right?
Yes.
It's classier than fake leather. It's faux leather.
Well, you'll still let the dogs in, right?
My nuts sweat all over it, that's for sure.
You'll still hear the dogs and most likely the airport, airplanes flying overhead. But you'll be nice and cool.
Hooker.
Yeah, but you'll be nice and cool.
Where is Studio B going to be?
It's in the west wing of the Rat Pad here.
Oh, okay.
So, same place. It's right here. But,
so 10 feet away.
Yeah, it's like, it's a good 14 feet away, Jamil. Come on, don't be ridiculous.
That's true.
I just wanted to point out, say goodbye nicely to Studio A has treated us well and treated us poorly all at the same time.
The weird thing was, I was thinking the other day, I wish I had a lot of pictures of this. Just from my angle sitting here, pictures of you, pictures of John, pictures of everything in the studio. I wish I had a bunch of pictures of that.
It's a few years of sitting in here and several friggin' hours.
4 years of my nuts stuck to the seat, yes.
Looking at us.
The hot summer and freezing my ass off in the winter and talking into the stinky microphone. Of course, the stinky microphones will still be there.
Yeah, that will travel. So you'll get there'll be a lot of memory recall.
Aromatherapy type of thing.
Yeah. But and the other thing about, you're right, Jamil, we should have had more pictures because the way your health has been declining lately, you're going to be
soon.
Senile before that.
Right, and you'll be able to sell those.
Right.
Have me sign them ahead of time.
Yeah.
Blank photo paper, and then print them all on there. And,
I'll dig up what we have.
Yeah.
Share them with you.
Absolutely. I think if it's not this lump on the back of my hand that takes me out, it's the blinding pain while I'm banging the wife type of pain.
The boning blackouts.
Yeah. If it's not one thing, it's another.
Yeah. All right, guys, take it away.
All right, so the whole thing about fermentation temperature control, you can start out very plain and simple. The important thing is to kind of be aware of your environment. You want to tend to pick an area that doesn't get like direct sun or have weird shifts in temperature throughout the day. Interior closet, things like that. If you're short on cash, increasing the thermal mass of what you're trying to control is going to help. You put your fermenter in a tub of water, in a bathtub, something like that. If that doesn't help enough, then you switch to active control, and that's fan across a towel if you're in a dry enough area as far as humidity goes. Although, a window AC unit. But if you're going to pony up for a window AC unit and go through the trouble of mounting it, I would just get a fridge. If you get a fridge, you might be able to jack around with the thermostat if it's a manual control and get that adjusted. But have the wife turn a few more tricks and, put the kids out begging on the corner and sell the dog, according to John, and you can, get yourself a controller.
No, rent the dog. Rent the dog.
Rent the dog to the neighbor with a real emotional problem, yes. And then, and I won't pay top dollar. And then get yourself a controller. And with that controller, the probe can go on the outside. The thermal well is fine. If you really want to do that, it's another sanitary point. That's why I don't do it. On the outside with some insulation, you're fine. You can even do multiple carboys in one fridge, one doing lagers, one doing ales. You could do both with ales, both with lagers. Either they're touching if you want them to read the same temperature, or they're spread apart and one has a heater and one has the fridge cooling if you want to do different temperatures. There's kind of a limit to that temperature range you can do. 15 degrees is about the maximum. And what else did we cover, John? Is that about it?
I think that was about it. Yeah. But the two-stage.
Two-stage?
Both heating and cooling.
Right. Yeah.
And
if you really want precise temperature control, and the important thing is, steady temperature or rising temperature. You just don't want the wild fluctuations, and really, Joe already knows this. The importance of temperature control is really the importance in the beer you're making. It has as much to do with the flavor development and successful attenuation as proper pitching rate. So don't leave it to chance. Do what you can to save your pennies. You shouldn't be buying stainless steel conicals. What you should be buying is fermentation temperature control. And I think even the people, our fine sponsors at More Beer, will tell you the same. They sell great stainless steel conicals and all that other gear that you can get. Definitely go by there and check that out. And if you got the extra Quatloos, go ahead and use them on that. But if it's a matter of choice, fermentation temperature control is everything for that.
Yeah.
All right, another fine show, and if you enjoy this kind of programming, visit our sponsor morebeer.com. Tell them how much you love the show, and thank them for sponsoring us. And also go to thebrewingnetwork.com. We've got a whole store there. And I'll tell you, the current studio is going to become all merchandise. I'm looking at racks and racks of great merchandise, shirts, hats, glassware, books signed by John. You want a book, How to Brew, personally signed by John? They'll even tell you how much he loves you in there. They're here in the Brewing Network store, and you can get in there, pick up stuff like that. All the profits go directly to the Brewing Network and keep all the shows going. So if you enjoy the Sunday session, if you enjoy Can You Brew It, or that show that shouldn't be mentioned, all those shows are supported too. And it's a good cause. Same thing, you can donate. Click on that Donate Now button, and you can sign up to contribute as little as $2 a month. It puts you in a raffle that More Beer supplies the prizes for. They've given away conical fermenters, counterflow chillers. They've given away a whole sculpture this last month. And if you sign up as one of those recurring donators, you get to participate in that too. And if you're get the chance to listen to live, you get to join in the chat room on the forum. Click to participate in that. Until then, I wish you all a Merry Christmas and Brew Strong.
Keep reaching for the stars.